Kia ora te whānau. In my opinion, the best movies of all time is the Lord of the Rings trilogy filmed by Peter Jackson here in New Zealand. I love the Lord of the Rings. I love the story that Tolkien wrote. I love the characters. I love the plot. And I love the way Peter Jackson set it in New Zealand and made Aotearoa Middle-earth and created and crafted these beautiful movies. Now, you may have completely different movies that you prefer, and it would be fun to sit down and discuss our top 5 or top 10 list. But at the top of mine is The Lord of the Rings. And the third of the 3 movies, The Return of the King, there's this beautifully poignant scene about midway through. It involves the wizard Gandalf and one of the hobbits named Pippin. They're in the city of Minas Tirith that's being besieged by the forces of the Dark Lord, and things are looking incredibly bleak. It's looking like the city's going to fall, and they're going to be defeated, and they're going to be killed. And of course, at the last minute, that doesn't happen, but this is what they're facing. And in this moment, it's as though Pippin suddenly realizes that he is staring death in the face. And this is it. And in this moment, in this beautiful scene that just slows everything down, Pippin says to Gandalf, "I didn't think it would end this way." And Gandalf looks at him with a smile on his face and says, "End? No, the journey doesn't end here. Death is just another path, one that we must all take." It's that idea of departure we looked at last week. He says the grey rain curtain of this world rolls back and it all turns to silver glass. And then you see it. And Pippin goes, "See what, Gandalf? What?" And Gandalf replies, "White shores and beyond, a far green country with a swift sunrise." And Pippin smiles, says, "Well, that doesn't sound so bad." I love the way that Tolkien wrote those words. I love the image that Tolkien has of the afterlife, of heaven. White shores, this far off green country. It's a beautiful image, and I want to explore that image more with you in these next few minutes. We're in this little 2-part series, After I Die. And last week we looked at the immediate moments after we die, when our eyes close for the last time, when our heart stops beating. We learned that the hope for Christians, for those who have put their faith in Jesus and been forgiven, death is just this departure to go and be with Jesus in heaven. The question I want us to think about in the second part, though, is, well, what is heaven? What will eternity be like? Is it white shores, this beautiful image that Tolkien created? And so I want to delve into with you what the Bible teaches us about the afterlife, about forever, about heaven. But to do that, we're going to need to demolish some of the images that we've got in our brains. Last week I showed 3 cartoons that appeared in Kiwi newspapers when some prominent sports people died. This is one of them, the image of Jonah Lomu bursting through the gates of heaven. But I want you to notice the way this picture works, the images. It's clouds, it's pearly gates, it's St. Peter as an angel being trampled by Lomu. And that for many of us is the image we've got. We think of heaven in these non-physical, non-material ways. It's clouds and it's angels and it's harps and it's pearly gates. In fact, a number of years ago, this was brilliantly captured by Gary Larson, who did the Far Side cartoons. This is his image of heaven. Some dude sitting on a cloud, all alone, dressed as an angel, thinking, "Dang, I wished I brought a magazine." And for many of us, this is what we think of when we talk about heaven. And I want to suggest that everything in this picture is wrong. The clouds, the being an angel, the wishing we'd brought a magazine. Instead, what the Bible tells us about heaven is far more amazing and far more beautiful. Many Christians have responded against this kind of image and instead come up with a different image. And they say, no, in the book of Revelation, it's all about worship. We're worshipping Jesus and on our knees and casting down our crowns before him. Heaven is like an eternal worship service. And this is what best-selling author John Eldredge wrote about that. He said, "Nearly every Christian I've spoken with has some idea that heaven is an unending church service, one great hymn after another, forever and ever, amen. And he writes, and our heart sinks forever and ever. That's it. That's the good news. Now, don't get me wrong. I love worship. I love gathering with God's people and raising my voice and singing about our beautiful and awesome God. But I'm with Eldridge. The thought that that's all heaven is about, I don't think that's good news either. So, what is heaven? I want to dive with you into the Bible, particularly the last two chapters of the Bible, Revelation chapter 21 and 22, and explore with you for a few minutes what eternity is going to be like. What will heaven be like? Just before we do that, though, I want us to talk for a minute about that word heaven. Because heaven actually is a word that does double duty, and we can get ourselves very easily confused. Last week I introduced this idea that theologians talk about called the intermediate state. It's when we die, the moment of death, our bodies go into the ground in a casket or they're cremated, it doesn't matter, and our souls go to be with Jesus in heaven immediately. And that is our state until, I said last week, the resurrection. When Jesus comes back to this earth in the second coming, he is going to raise our bodies and they will become immortal and imperishable. We'll have resurrection bodies like Jesus. And so that's the temporary state we call heaven. But then after Jesus returns, he establishes his eternal kingdom. We're given resurrection, new, incorruptible bodies. We then go to what theologians call the eternal state. Where in our resurrected bodies, we will be with Jesus forever. Now, here's the struggle. We use heaven to talk about both of these things, and we sometimes merge them and don't quite understand. So we end up thinking that this idea of our souls being in heaven while our bodies are in the ground, whether we have no body in this temporary state or a temporary one, it doesn't matter. We think this is where the clouds come in and all that imagery. But actually, our eternal state, what the Bible will actually call, as we're going to see, the new heavens and the new earth, is fundamentally different. And to help us figure this out, a friend of mine, a pastor named Jeff Jones in the States, has coined a really simple little phrase to help us understand this better. He calls this Heaven 1.0 and Heaven 2.0. And while this immediate hope that we have, as we saw last week, the Apostle Paul said, this is better by far than life in this fallen world. What I want to suggest today is that Heaven 2.0, the eternal state, is even better by far again. So what is Heaven 2.0 going to be like, this new heavens and new earth? I want to walk through Revelation 21 and 22, some different verses there, also jump into the prophet Isaiah in the Old Testament. But I want to hang all my thoughts on this little rhyme that comes out of Victorian England. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Of course, it's talking about what a bride will wear. But I want to use these four little phrases to talk about the new heavens and the new earth. Heaven 2.0. So let's start, something old. Here's what you read when you come to Revelation chapter 21, verse 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Now, John here is quoting from the prophet Isaiah, as we're going to see in a minute. But I also want to suggest that he's alluding to something else. He's going right back in the biblical story, because when we read heaven and earth, I think John's taking us back to the very beginning of the story, to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Because what happens at the end of the story in Revelation, I think, is in a sense taking us back to the beginning of the story, to the Garden of Eden, where God first planted humanity. See, look at these words in Revelation chapter 22, the last chapter of the Bible. The angel showed me the river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and the Lamb down the middle of the great street of the city. And on each side of the river stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. So eternity is described as a city with a great street, but there's this river and the tree of life and fruit. It's this beautiful image of a garden. So come back with me to the start of the story in the Bible. Look at this garden. Yahweh God, this is Genesis 2. Yahweh God had planted a garden in the east, in Eden. And there he put the man he had formed. And in the middle of the garden was the tree of life. and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and a river watering the garden flowed from Eden. See, it's a garden with a river and the tree of life. In fact, the tree of life will disappear after Genesis 3 and doesn't come back till we get to Revelation 21 and 22. And the picture here, I think, is that in one sense, heaven 2.0, the new heavens and the new earth, are simply going to be the Garden of Eden revisited. So this demolishes that Far Side cartoon of clouds and angels and wishing we had a magazine. Instead of imagining ourselves sitting on a cloud, we should imagine ourselves walking in a garden. See, we're going to be in resurrected bodies, and our hope is a new earth, a revisited Garden of Eden, a paradise with God. This is more material and more physical and more earthy than I think many of us have understood. We're going back to Eden, before sin, before the fall, before the curse, before death. So writer Philip Ryken says this is part of God's purpose for his people, a return to the place where we began. It's a place of relationship between man and woman and fellowship with God, a place of light and life, a place of trees and water. And I love this last line. This is the home where we've always belonged and we always will. So heaven 2.0, the new heavens and the new earth, there's something old about it. It's the Garden of Eden revisited. But it's also something new. It's a new creation. Remember those words of Revelation 21 that begins, I am making a new heaven and a new earth. And as I said, John took those words from the prophet Isaiah in the Old Testament. God says, see, I'm going to create a new heavens and a new earth. The former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind. So in what sense? If there's a sense that the heaven 2.0 is old, it's Eden revisited, in what sense is it new? Well, it's new in two ways. First of all, it's a renewed planet. Peter, writing in his second letter in the New Testament, says, by the same word, the present heavens and earth are reserved for fire, where we are now, being kept for the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly. And the heavens are going to disappear with a roar, the elements will be destroyed by fire, and the earth and everything done in it will be laid bare. Now, there's some scholars who believe this means that God's going to utterly destroy the whole heavens and earth and start fresh. In other words, it's all brand new. But there's other scholars, and this is the camp I would be in, that believes it's more a renewal of this earth. It's kind of like God's going to clear out all the mess in the current heaven and earth, and he is going to renew it and recreate it into something glorious and beautiful. It's this idea of being laid bare. Back in the olden days, I don't think we do it anymore, but in the olden days, if a farmer wanted to clear off land for pasture, they'd burn it off with fire, burn off the bush, so they were left with a bare land. We see nowadays, especially here in Auckland, this is what developers do, don't they? They buy a piece of property in some of our suburbs, and they get the little 3-bedroom bungalow taken away by someone, and they clear off everything on the section, and then they build like 4 townhouses on it. But the idea is they clear it off and they begin new. They build something new, but it's that same piece of land. And I think this is what the new heavens and the new earth are going to be. God is going to judge it with fire, and he's going to clear everything off, but he's going to renew the creation into a new heavens and a new earth. It's a renewed world. But there's another aspect of it being new too, and this is where Revelation 21 comes in. It says, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, because the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. And they will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. Now, Revelation is sometimes really hard to understand, but the imagery here is of heaven coming to earth. And so that idea of the new Jerusalem, the city of God, that's the dwelling place of God. And so the imagery at the end of the Bible is of God's dwelling place coming to earth, heaven joining earth. So we have a phrase sometimes, that's like heaven on earth. Well, that's going to be literally true at the end of the story. That's what Heaven 2.0 is. It is literally heaven joining earth and coming together so that now God will dwell with us in this refreshed, revisited Eden, joined together where he will now dwell with us forever. So Australian theologian Michael Bird says the final state is a heaven that descends to earth. It's an earth that receives the heavens so that both heaven and earth are transformed into something other than what they were before. So God's dwelling place, in this other dimension, heaven, is going to come and join earth, and we will live with God forever. This is the picture we need to have in mind. Heaven and earth are going to be changed into a new creation. See, Heaven 2.0, our hope for eternity, is going to be heaven on earth. Life as it was always meant to be. As I've pulled this series together, one of the books that I found incredibly helpful is by a Kiwi theologian, Mike Hubbard's. It's called Heaven. Subtitle is An Inkling of What Is to Come. Mike is a Kiwi. He's a theologian at Laidlaw College here in Auckland, and he's written this brilliant book. And this is the way he describes this idea of a new creation of heaven and earth. He says the new heavens and earth will be a renewed creation, more vast, expansive, colourful, and exciting than any world we know of here. And in this world, we will be physically and bodily resurrected and made fit for living here. See, again, it's not clouds. We're not angels. Resurrected bodies on a renewed, brand new planet that's like Eden revisited and God now living with us. That is our hope, and that's where we're going. So it'll be something old. It's the Garden of Eden revisited, and it's something new. It's a whole new creation where heaven is going to come to earth and God will live with us. And I want to suggest there's something borrowed. And what I mean by that is there's going to be elements of this life that we're going to take with us into this new life in the new heavens and the new earth. See, if this hope of eternity is much more earthy and physical and material than we've ever realized, it means that there's so much more from this life that will actually be part of eternity and what we're doing forever. So what are we going to be doing? Well, we've already mentioned we're going to be worshipping. And there is going to be times of worship and praise and adoration and speaking with God and adoring Him. But there's going to be so much more to it than that. Let me give you just a couple of snapshots from the prophet Isaiah. This is Isaiah 65. They will build houses and dwell in them. They will plant vineyards and eat their fruit. My chosen ones will long enjoy the work of their hands. So notice this. We're going to be living in houses. We're going to be planting vineyards. We're going to be eating and drinking. But notice too, there's going to be work in the new heavens and the new earth. People are going to be building and planting. Look at this final line, the work of their hands. See, we often think of work as a drudgery and something we'd rather not do, but work is a blessing to us. Back in the Garden of Eden, God gave Adam and Eve work in the garden before sin entered the world. And when sin is gone out of the story, we're still going to work. But there's going to be no futility. There's going to be no frustration. There's going to be no annoying bosses. We're going to love the work we're doing. That's what Isaiah says. Look at this line. We're going to enjoy the work of our hands. And so much of what we do in this world, in our work and creativity and invention and making things, we're going to be doing that in the new heavens and the new earth. Not every occupation will go over. We're not going to need medicine. Thank you, all you lovely doctors and nurses and so on. We're not going to need those skills. But you're going to be able to develop whole new skills and go into careers you may have dreamed about. That's all part of the new heavens and the new earth. And so is this. Look at Isaiah 25. On this mountain, Yahweh Almighty will prepare a feast of rich food for all peoples. A banquet of aged wine, the best of meats and the finest of wines. We're going to be eating, we're going to be drinking, we're going to be partying, we're going to be hosting one another in homes, we're going to be practicing hospitality and fellowship and community. So that whole image of some dude sitting on a cloud all alone is complete rubbish. There is this beautiful harmony and togetherness and community in the new heavens and the new earth around eating and drinking together. In fact, I think what we should be doing is taking the best of this life, imagining the best parts of what it means to be human beings made in God's image, without sin and without the mess and without the brokenness. And I think a lot of that is going to be part of the new heavens and the new earth. So theologian Wayne Grudem says it does seem we're going to eat and drink in the new heavens and carry on other physical activities as well. Perhaps people will work at the whole range of investigation and development of the creation by technological, creative, and inventive means, thus exhibiting, he says, the full extent of our creation in the image of God. I think there's going to be invention, there's going to be creativity, there's going to be technology. I think IT is going to explode. That whole world, I think, is all going to be part of where we go as the image bearers of God, living in a renewed creation with Him forever and ever. And that's one of the things I love about Mike Hubbart's book. What he does is he begins to explore what that might look like with what he calls a baptized imagination. And I love that idea. I think there's going to be art in the new heavens and the new earth. I think there's going to be theatre in the new heavens and the new earth. I think there's going to be fashion and play and sport. I love playing tennis. I'm going to play tennis, I'm convinced, in the new heavens and the new earth. I'm going to play golf, and I'm garbage at golf. And here's the point. Because this will be perfection, it doesn't mean my game of golf will be perfection and I'll hit 18 holes in one. I will have to work at my golf game because the perfection is moral perfection. There will still be room in the new heavens and the new earth to improve my golf game. But here's the kicker. I will never throw another club again. But all of that is going to be part of the new heavens and the new earth. Because Heaven 2.0 has something borrowed. The very best of this world is going to come with us into the next. So something old, Eden revisited. Something new, a new creation, heaven on earth. Something borrowed, elements from this life. And here's where I want to change the last line of the rhyme. Nothing blue, nothing sad, nothing wrong. Because this is going to be life without sin and without the curse. Let me just read you some passages from Revelation and Isaiah, virtually without comment. I just want you to hear the words of the Bible and what Scripture promises forever for those who have put their trust in Jesus. Revelation 21, He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things, he says, has passed away. Revelation 22, no longer will there be any curse. The throne of God and of the Lamb will be in the city, and his servants will serve him. Isaiah 25, on this mountain he'll destroy the shroud that enfolds all peoples, the sheet that covers all nations. What he's talking about, he will swallow up death forever. And then the next verse, the sovereign Yahweh will wipe away the tears from all faces. He will remove his people's disgrace from all the earth. See, this is Heaven 2.0, folks. No sin, no curse, no death, no tears, no shame, no guilt, no regret, nothing that comes from the fallenness and brokenness and sin of humanity. The curse will be lifted off the entire creation. Death will be completely gone. We will be morally perfect and sinless in a way that I actually find it hard to even imagine what that's going to be like. New Testament scholar D.A. Carson says, with resurrection existence in our resurrected bodies and no possibility of falling into sin ever again, no impurity will be allowed to enter there. None, he says. No one-upmanship, no creed, no holocausts, no hate, no betrayal, no jealousy. That's all the negatives. Positively, no idolatry. All who enter will be completely and utterly and totally and joyfully God-centered, because that's the way it should be. To be perfectly honest, this is the bit I find hardest to imagine. I can't imagine living without the mixed motives that I constantly battle with. I can't imagine not having the struggle with sin and temptation that seems to be constant in my life. I can't imagine not having the regret for having said something stupid to someone that I wish I could take back. And I can't imagine this last line, being completely and totally and fully absorbed with God alone and not myself. But that's the hope of forever. That is what we are looking forward to. Nothing blue, no sin, no curse, no death. One of the things I love about this book by Mike Hubbard is in between all of the great theological insights that he makes, he scatters these beautiful questions from children about what Heaven 2.0 is going to be like. Here's just a couple of them. Micah, aged 5, wanted to know, is there still time out in heaven? Nah, no time out for adults or kids, because we'll never need it. Isn't that incredible? Or Roger wanted to know, will people annoy us in heaven? And again, the answer is no. No one will ever annoy you. No one will ever hurt you. No one will ever betray you. No one will ever sin against you again. But equally, you will never annoy someone else. And you will never betray someone. And you will never hurt someone with your words again. Isn't that incredible? But that's what Heaven 2.0 is going to be like. Something old, it's Eden revisited. Something new, heaven on earth. Something borrowed, the best of this life carried forward, but nothing blue. Sin, curse, death, completely gone. Heaven 2.0 is going to be heaven on earth. Life as it was always meant to be. And why is that? Because at the heart of the stunning picture of eternity is God himself, Father, Son, and Spirit. Let me come back to this one verse from Revelation 21 we've already seen, but I want you to hear these words again. Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. These words are actually scattered all the way through the biblical story. Time and again, these promises build all the way through the biblical narrative. In fact, I would argue that these are the words at the heart and behind the scene of the blessing of Aaron in Numbers chapter 6 that has swept the world in the last few years in the song, The Blessing. The blessing is a prayer and a looking forward to Heaven 2.0. where we are going to dwell with God, Father, Son, and Spirit forever and ever. One final question from Mike Hubbard's book. Cindy wanted to know, will we have to wait in line to see God? No, we won't. We will have full access to the presence of God forever, because finally and fully, God is going to dwell with us in the new heavens and the new earth. It is going to be heaven on earth, life as we've never imagined it. As we finish, I love the way that two American theologians have tried to capture all of this in a simple equation. They say, think of the most joy-filled moments of your life. So just take a sec. Think of the most precious moments of life here on earth. A wedding day, a dinner party, a walk along the beach, a reunion with long-lost friends, Christmas morning. You take your pick. Take the most incredible moments of this life. And then they say, subtract the sadness that comes when we realize how fleeting our existence here is on earth. Subtract all the sin and all the rubbish and the brokenness. Subtract the hevel that we've learned about in Ecclesiastes. Then they say, add the immediate presence of God into that story, and then multiply by infinity, And that yields something of what heaven is going to be like. That is our destiny, folks, for those of us who have put our faith and trust in Jesus. Because as we saw last week, good people don't go to heaven, but forgiven people do. And this is what forgiven people will look forward to. Heaven 2.0. Resurrected bodies, living in heaven on earth, and living life as it was always meant to be. I started this message by quoting J.R.R. Tolkien from Lord of the Rings. I want to end with Tolkien's friend C.S. Lewis and his works of fantasy, the Narnia Chronicles. The last book of the Narnia series is The Last Battle. And in the last battle, the children that have come in and out of the storyline all through it end up talking to Aslan at the very end. Aslan is the representative of Jesus, the lion. And they realize they've died. And in Lewis's imagination, as the story closes, they move into this new heavens and new earth. And here's what you read towards the end of the last battle. For them, it was only the beginning of the real story. All of their life in this world and all of their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now at last, they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story that no one on earth has read, which goes on and on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. This is our hope. This is our future. This is our destiny when we've trusted in Jesus. Heaven 2.0 is going to be heaven on earth. Finally, life as it was meant to be. May that hope and that vision and that future carry you through this lockdown and through the rest of life. God bless.